Welcome to our channel. The Unburnt Why Daenerys is Fireproof When Other Targaryens Aren't How It Changes the Books. The Unburnt is one of many titles Daenerys Targaryen has throughout Game of Thrones, and George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire books too. However, unlike, say, Khaleesi or Breaker of Chains, this is not a symbol of political power or action, but a more supernatural or magical ability being fireproof. Daenerys emerged from Khal Drogo's funeral pyre with 3 baby dragons in Game of Thrones Season 1, Episode 1, Fire and Blood, and was somehow unscathed. This feat was repeated on a couple of occasions throughout Game of Thrones' timeline. In Season 2, Episode 10, Valor Morghulis, Daenerys stands in the House of the Undying, surrounded by dragonfire. In Season 6, Episode 4, Book of the Stranger, it's even more overt, as she burns the coals and stands inside a building on fire, again emerging without a mark. It helps make Daenerys one of Game of Thrones' most powerful characters, but the show doesn't explain the actual cause of it, and does make a change for the books in the process. Daenerys being immune to fire in Game of Thrones explained. Game of Thrones didn't explain how Daenerys became immune to fire, nor, crucially, did it explain when it happened. The latter is particularly important for addressing the former, as there are clues and significant moments that would help explain it. If Daenerys only truly became immune to fire, rather than having an unusually high tolerance for heat with the events surrounding Khal Drogo's funeral pyre, then the magic contained within would be a clear means of giving her fire immunity. The pyre involved 2 kinds of magic that would be quite fitting for giving a Targaryen powers fire and blood. This is what all magic in old Valyria stemmed from, quite possibly being involved in things like Valyrian steel and even the creation of dragons themselves, and so it makes sense for them to be present here. The blood magic comes with the ritualistic sacrifice Dany makes of Mirri Maz Dur, a practitioner of blood magic herself, alongside her horse, and of course, Drogo's own body, which as a Khal could technically count as king's blood. Then there is the raging pyre itself, combining with the other magic to not only wake dragons from stone, but perhaps give Daenerys immunity to fire. There are things working against this notion, however, namely, those instances where Dany seemed impervious to feeling heat. Her holding the dragon egg from the brazier or stepping into a scalding hot bath as if it were just lukewarm, suggests she could have been immune to fire before then, though Targaryens are more heat-resistant. If that's the case, then it would be an even more supernatural ability, a divine, ostensibly unique gift that she was born with. Of course, there are simpler reasons when stepping out from the narrative. For one, it's a lot easier for Game of Thrones to just have Daenerys be fireproof rather than explain why she isn't later on. And 2, it adds to her mythic status, power, and thus her own self-belief in her destiny. Daenerys controls her 3 dragons differently to other Targaryens, with a seemingly greater bond and an ability to somewhat dictate the riderless Rhaegal and Viserion, not just Drogon. That's because she's the mother of dragons and speaks to the situation of their hatching with her on the pyre. But that itself could also come from the same magic that made her fireproof, and the 2 things may be linked. Is not fireproof in A Song of Ice Fire. In the A Song of Ice and Fire books, Daenerys emerges from Khal Drogo's funeral pyre in much the same way she does in the show. That is, relatively unscathed and carrying 3 baby dragons, leading to the sobriquet the Unburnt. However, Dany technically is burned in the novel. Her hair is scorched off by the flames, leaving her bald. Obviously, Game of Thrones didn't want a bald Emilia Clarke, and so skipped over this part, further enhancing her fireproof abilities. Thanks you for watching. Stay connected with us for more videos.